Cozy farming and life simulation games have generally been something I like to play and spend time with between games, and Harvest Moon, Story of Seasons and Rune Factory spring to mind in most cases. More recently, other games such as Stardew Valley, World's Dawn and Tales of Seikyu have popped up, and there's still a bunch of other games like them I've yet to try. But today we're going to be looking at Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma. This game is considered a spin-off of the main series, much like Rune Factory Frontier and Rune Factory Ocean / Tides of Destiny. The game blends the familiar farming elements from the older Harvest Moon games as well as the Story of Seasons series as they were developed by Marvelous, but with a fantasy and action RPG element, hence Rune Factory's original subtitle, A Fantasy Harvest Moon. There will be some late game footage shown out of context. In Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma, you can select either a male or female character with either the default name of Subaru or Kaguya respectively, or you can give them a different name. Regardless of whoever you choose, the game has your character riding a white dragon engaging in battle with a black dragon with the character you didn't choose riding it. After this encounter, your character falls and lands in Spring Village, one of the villages of Azuma. Unfortunately, alongside your fall, your character also loses their memory, which seems to be a bit of a trend with Rune Factory games, and decides to stay in Spring Village. After having lived in the village for about half a month, still considered the first day in game, and being held by Iroha, a young woman running the village's tea house, your character receives a vision where they're told by a mysterious woman that they are an Earth Dancer, an alternative title to the Earthmates from previous games, and is gifted a sacred treasure. The following morning you encounter a floating talking woolly, one of the common monsters of the game who claims to be a descendant of a legendary dragon god known as Mihoshi Habaki. You nickname this woolly as Woolby, and shortly afterwards, Spring Village is attacked by the Black Dragon, who is driven away by an airship piloted by a treasure hunter and his archaeologist acquaintance. After using the sacred treasure to restore parts of the village, you also restore the sacred tree in the centre of the village, which awakens its goddess, the mysterious woman who appeared in your vision. After learning the basics of farming, your quest to travel to the other seasonal villages and awaken their deities begin. While saving the land, you can grow and sell crops, befriend the inhabitants of Azuma, and potentially even find love with one of the game's 16 love interests, though you will only have access to 15 of them. But is this game any good? Find out in The Good. As always, I found the game's characters to be quite endearing. The supporting cast outside the random villagers that join your villages have their own quirks and personalities, and Guardians of Azuma have placed more of an emphasis on building relationships with characters with a revamped social system. While traditionally you would have just given a character a gift or talked to them every day, you can now select conversation topics or activities once a day with a character to raise their bond levels. As their bond levels increase, characters can join you on your adventures, increase the power of their skills, give you birthday presents or other gifts, and you can even cook with them to make unique food items. As you raise these bond levels, characters will allow you to become a little more intimate with them, such as taking them out to various locations or poking them for fun. You can also unlock bond missions for the characters where you get to help them out with a dilemma, and for your romantic interests, this is something that you're required to do in order to confess and start dating them with the end goal of marrying them and starting a family. Having trouble deciding? The game offers a Rewoven Fates feature where you can create alternate continuities where you married other characters that you can switch between. As you unlock the other villages, you'll also find that characters will also visit them too instead of staying in one place. I really grew to like the characters, and this entry continues the tradition of a character from a previous game appearing in it with an older Hina from Rune Factory 5. I liked the characters as well as the revamped social system, and I felt that this was a breath of fresh air. Like Rune Factory 5, I also appreciate how much time this game has had me invest in it with its mechanics. A common complaint I have with farming sims is how quickly I can go through the days, but while I was playing through the game's main story, I was often spending anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour or more per day. There was a lot to explore as well as things to do, and I really like how as more of the story unlocks, there's extra islands to go and visit. It reminds me of Tides of Destiny in that sense. The game does encourage exploring with a couple of side quests involved, such as shooting targets or finding frog statues. As you get other sacred treasures, you not only use them to fight enemies, but you can also use them to access places that you couldn't reach before. The sacred treasures can also help you with your day-to-day farming activities, and by using them and running around, growing, shopping, harvesting and fighting, you can gain skill points you can invest in various skill trees to improve your abilities and skills. The sacred treasures also replace the functions of the traditional farming tools in previous games. The drum can accelerate crop growth, the sword can burn crops down to their seeds and is required to get higher level seeds, the fan is good for bulk harvesting crops, and the umbrella waters an area and makes watering your crops easier. Fields are now created by asking Warby to create tilled tiles from soil that you get throughout the game, as well as paths, water tiles and hills. For plot reasons, you end up being the village chief of the villages you save, and as chief you can place buildings, fields and decorations how you see fit, so each village can be customised to your liking. While a year is comprised of 4 seasons, each village is locked to its respective season, and most crops can be grown regardless of season, with the game telling you which villages are ideal and not ideal for growing crops. The game also allows you to see from a glance what crops or flowers you have planted on a particular spot, as well as how long it will take for them to grow, which is pretty handy too. Generic villages will also start coming back, so you can assign them jobs such as planting, watering and harvesting crops, mining or logging, fishing, animal care, or running a shop. Villages have skills and you can determine whether you want them or not. Some villagers can be found transformed into enemies and will join the village when the enemy is defeated. Villagers doing your work can give you more time to explore, fight or complete the main story. However, you do need to make sure that there are houses for the villagers, and they also need to eat, so they have a daily cost. And the idea is to keep the villagers happy while making sure that you ship more than what they cost to live in the village. Happiness can be raised by making sure you meet these conditions, as well as through contests that you can organise at the villages on holidays. I really do like the game's mechanics, and they certainly kept me busy while I was trying to go through the story. On the topic of story, I did like the game's plot. Without spoiling too much, I feel the impact of the story was handled much better than Rune Factory 5, and I was much more engaged with the story and interested in where things were going. While a little bit on the short side with me beating the main story within the first in-game year, I would have been happy if the game locked off reviving the different seasonal villages until you reached that season respectively in the game, just to encourage farming and training to get stronger. The game does try to keep you busy with side quests and bond events, and there is also a request board that you can take quests from. While a lot of the requests are somewhat samish, such as delivering materials or defeating or taming monsters, you can also get requests directly from characters by talking to them, and they can often ask for things from you such as food or defeating enemies above a certain level. If you're wanting to befriend the supporting cast, this is a great way to build up those bonds outside of a daily activity with them. Now, I think we've covered the stuff I liked, so let's look at what I didn't like in the bad. While I did like the story and the fact that it kept me engaged in the days longer, there isn't a great deal of things to do post-game. The game does require you to be married and have a child for the post-game content to start, and even then it's fighting a few bosses and then dealing with a 10-floor dungeon with stronger monsters and bosses, which at this point shouldn't give you too much trouble. There's some story dialogue at the end of it, and that's it. While you can find floating islands exploring the skies of Azuma, once you've explored them all, there isn't a real need to come back to a lot of them. Post-game content is something that's hard to manage with these sorts of games, but I think with the floating islands there would have been the potential to have random dungeon islands appear with stronger ones available after you beat the story, or maybe reintroduce the dungeon seed mechanics from Rune Factory 4. Tides of Destiny even had your goal in picking up temporary islands that you could explore, which kept things fun. Once you've completed the post-game content, there just really isn't a lot of things to do, and while I enjoy the farming aspect of the game, your villagers, if you've assigned them to farming, can often handle that side of things for you. The only other issue I have is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, and that's simply going through the game's cooking menu. While you're trying to find something to cook, the food items are at least categorised, but there's no quick way of going through, let's say, a mains meal list and finding something, instead having to go up and down the list manually. Simply having you press left or right to go up or down a page would have made this slightly less frustrating given the amount of things you can learn to cook in the game. You also can't choose the quality of items to use in cooking by default, with the game selecting the lowest quality one you have. Instead, you need to press a button and deselect the ingredient so you can pick the one that you want. If you change the quantity of the cooked dish, the game will then default you back to the lowest quality ingredients, and you have to go through this all over again. This is tricky given that you also need to keep track of how many of the higher quality ingredients you have so that you don't have to double up on all this work. It's a simple quality of life fix, and I can see this as something that can be patched to solve. Other than that, I have no other complaints, so let's wrap things up with the opinion. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is a solid title in the series. It takes what made Rune Factory fun, reinvented some of the mechanics like social interactions and village management, while still keeping the spirit of what the series is about. I loved exploring in the game, interacting with the characters and seeing them grow and develop, as well as the overall story. However, the game is lacking in post-game content to retain my interest, and there are minor quality of life issues which could be fixed, but that doesn't greatly detract from the positive experience I've had with the game as a result. If you're a fan of farming simulation games and you've played the other Rune Factory games, or the Story of Seasons, Harvest Moon games, then you'll find some joy with this game. While there are references to previous games, it's generally dialogue from Hina and you aren't required to have played any previous games to fully enjoy it, so it's also a good entry point. So with that, it's time for my rating. I would give Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma a colossal pink turnip out of 10. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next Infinite Backlog review. If you enjoyed today's review, feel free to like, comment and subscribe for more. You can check out our other videos or follow us on X, Instagram and Facebook. Once again, thank you for watching.